So I'm having to narrate this video after the event. My external microphone didn't work, but the video is very good. So I thought I'd actually add the voice on after. It's a little bit harder to do it that way because I don't know when I'm going to turn the video camera, but I reckon the quality of the voice will be a lot louder, clearer. So we're looking up at the 5 arches, brought the railway into Hillsborough, into Wadsley Bridge, and at one bit the away supporters used to come in on the trains that way, but I don't think they do anymore. So we're on Erries Road, walking down towards the Spion Cop. They increased the capacity from nearly 17,000 to 22,500 back in the late 80s. Prior to that, there was no roof on the Cop either. It was a Spion Cop, so one end was higher than the other. So they actually brought both levels of the Cop to the same height and then stuck the roof on top. It was absolutely electric on the Cop when there was about 22,000 in. The roar coming out of it. There's only one video that really gives that impression, and that's the Kaiserslautern one. There's not many videos of when it was really at full capacity, roaring out there. But prior to that, you used to get absolutely soaked when it was raining. And it's a real shame we only had probably about 5 years of standing on the Cop with a roof on top. We used to suck the ball into the back of the net when people were playing against us. When your Man United and Liverpool came, we were like the 12th man and we could change the result of the match. The record crowd in Hillsborough was 72,000 against Manchester City. I think it was back in 1935. Or around about that time, it might have been 34, but there was also a massive crowd in 35 against Arsenal in the FA Cup, 68,000 in Hillsborough. I've got a picture on my wall of that. But they did widen Penistone Road, took away a lot of the little businesses along there. Probably the manufacturing had gone in after the 80s, because there used to be stamping presses all the way along Penistone Road into the city centre. See the back of the cantilever there. We're looking down Penistone Road, A61, down towards Manchester. There's a big roundabout at the bottom of there. But this was a very industrial area at one bit, but not anymore. So looking at the cantilever, built in 1960. Back up Penistone Road to the city centre. Horrendous to cross this road now. It was only single carriageway originally. You can see it's been really widened. To the right hand side there's a lot of old industrial land that could have been bought by Wednesday. Could have put a bridge across. And they could have actually used that land for revenue for the club. But the club is so badly run. It's been badly run for so long now. But there you can see the iconic North Stand, built in 1960. Capacity of 10,000 originally. It was the first stand, or the biggest stand, without any pillars in it when it was built in the world. But I just love the cantilever on the back of it, and when there were floodlights, used to walk down Erries Road to the football ground. It just looks awesome. You can see the gymnasium behind it, and we'll come back to that in a minute. So we're going to zoom in now on the south stand. Holds about 12,000. Looks like the original stand. The original stand had terracing in front, but that was taken out for the World Cup in 1966. Put seating in the front. Big mistake. They've extended the stand, built it up, put a second level on it, raised the roof up. And to me, it does look a fantastic stand. It looks traditional. And that's why I had a season ticket in 98, my final season ticket. When Di Canio pushed the referee over, club didn't support him enough. I hated the influx of foreign players, but Di Canio was something special. Passionate, skillful, technical. But this was where the old gymnasium was. It's now the merchandise for the football club. They've ripped out a load of terraces here. There's a lot of car parking. But if there's going to be an expansion of Hillsborough, they need to see if they can purchase more terraces and rip them out along that road, which we're going to walk down in a minute and I can show it you. But the stand on hill's about 9,000 now. Health and safety and all that. Absolutely pathetic health and safety nowadays. We're all the way down the right hand side. There's old industrial land, which would have been ideal to purchase, that they were using for car parking for quite some time. At one stage, they were going to actually build the ground all the way around like the back of the cantilever. And that never happened. It's a real shame. But then again, it wouldn't have the traditional look it actually has now. And if you ever look at Bramall Lane, it's as though Bramall Lane copied everything that happened at Hillsborough. Every single stand of theirs has followed what's happened at Hillsborough. Now, Sheffield Wednesday did play at Bramall Lane before Sheffield United. They had about 5 grounds around Bramall Lane. They then actually had their own ground, which was Olive Grove. Lasted there about 10 years before they were kicked off, so they could put a railway through it. At that particular time, the supporters voted to move to Carbrook in the East End, above Hillsborough, but for some reason the directors chose Hillsborough, whether they got the land cheap or gifted from the guy who owned Hillsborough Park, because that used to be an estate, and probably Hillsborough was a continuation of that estate, probably too big for him. But this row of terraces on the left, if they could purchase this row of terraces and strip it out all the way along here, it could make a massive difference to Hillsborough for the development. But whether people let go of the houses, say for an extra 50% or something like that, I don't know. But they did strip out so many of the houses along Penistone Road. But my ideal thing would be to actually move away from Hillsborough. I think there's too much stigma attached to Hillsborough now. And I think the ideal location for a rebuilt football ground would be in the East End of Sheffield, close to the M1. And what that would do is allow the away supporters to get into Hillsborough a lot easier. It would also draw in a lot more supporters from a wider field into Hillsborough and make it easier for them. There's already a super tram down there, so that's no issue. But I'm told the super tram is absolutely useless after the match. They can't get the supporters away. Well, the one that's into the East End. That will be a lot easier to get supporters away from the football ground because that's not constrained by traffic like it is around Hillsborough. So that will be a massive benefit with transporting supporters away from Hillsborough. But the powers that be aren't very switched on. You only have to look at Sheffield City Council. They do something, then they trash it. And at one bit I think we should have moved to the Don Valley, which had loads of development potential around it, and rebuilt Don Valley as a modern football ground. Sorry, as a traditional football ground, but with the modern facilities around it. So now we're coming on to Wadsley Bridge. So the cantilever's the north stand, the copse the east stand, and this is the west stand. And this was rebuilt for the World Cup in 1966. Originally it had a terrace and a metal shed on top for the back third. The only covered terracing in the ground at that time. The upper stand was built with 4,500 seats, terracing at the front, and then there's a corner held between about 8 to 10,000. Big detriment on this was putting fencing on it. Should never have happened. But there was also lots of other factors which don't get talked about. So that's the Crow's Nest on the left hand side. I love that, but that's shut down. And I went in this stand from about 4 or 5 year old because my grandma lived on the Cop End, and I'll show you that later. But you can see some black tarpaulin there. That's where the original turnstiles came to. Then there was a wall, and the wall was down the left hand side where you can see the yellow chicanes painted on the floor. There was a wall there, and then the turnstiles were where the black tarpaulin was. But it's all closed off now around the football ground. I think it used to be a lot more accessible to the public. And who owns the football ground? We supporters put the money in. From being about 17-year-old to being about 37, I went to Hillsborough every weekend. I invested some right money in the football club. But it's now purely a private concern. And I think it was a big mistake to allow the football hand to get in to foreign ownership, because I think at that time it was cheap enough for the supporters to buy the football club out, create a trust, and then I think they should have took a hit and gone down to the 4th division, rebuilt the club from the bottom up. But it's been a disaster for a long time now. I mean, I went to the Rumble House Cup final in 91. To me, that was a highlight. My last match was 2005 for the playoff final at Cardiff, which was an amazing afternoon. And I've seen Wednesday beat United in the semi-final at Wembley. So every time I've seen Wednesday in a major final, they've won. It's really funny because a few weeks ago I was doing a video at the bottom of the moor, and this guy walked up to me for a chat, and it was Lee Bullen, and we had a really good chat about the football club, and Lee really understands the history of the club. And Lee said to me, if Wednesday get to a final again, I've got to go. But my love of Wednesday's gone. I feel the club's been destroyed. It no longer feels like Sheffield Wednesday anymore. You can see the River Don just here. I think at one bit there would have been stepping stones across here when it was in the countryside rather than part of the industrial city. We're going to walk down the park side where Hillsborough Park is, and we'll see the south stand. But looking back towards the Leppings Lane west stand, the ground got flooded out a few years ago. I think they had to completely relay the turf. But it's funny, when I was talking to Lee Bullen, he was saying that the undersoil heating had failed on the match, and that's why he was walking around the city centre that Saturday. It had failed after the match because it had been so cold for so long. I think we had some real cold weather for about a week or two. And then I don't know what's happened with the undersoil since. But the whole area around Hillsborough doesn't look like how I remember it anymore. I'm going to show you some graffiti in a moment, and I would change the name on there. It's got the wrong name on at the moment. So the name on there at the moment is Monk Out. And what I'd say is it needs to be Chancery Out, not Monk Out. We had the same problems with Dave Richards. He kept sacking managers. And when he sacked Plea, I thought Dave Richards should have gone. He did bring Ron Atkinson in, which I thought was the right decision. But then Big Ron got sacked, and I think Big Ron should have been director of football at that time. And Nigel Pearson, who was a young upcoming manager at the time, should have come in as a manager under Big Ron. So we lost an opportunity, and the club went downhill from then on. But on the right hand side is Hillsborough Park. We're coming up to the main entrance for the football club. But I thought today I might have been able to walk through the football ground. But I think COVID-19 has been used for all sorts of excuses. I don't believe it's any worse than a normal winter flu. It's been weaponised like weapons of mass destruction. And why people can't see through that, I don't know. But the south stand holds about 12,000. You can see the directors parking there. All the facilities are in the back of this stand. I've been to functions here. I think I had a look round Hillsborough one night, went to a business meeting, and then I had a walk out under that main stand roof. And it is quite fantastic being stood at the front of that stand. And I did ask Graham Mackerel at the time about Sheffield Wednesday and Sheffield United merging. I don't think Sheffield's getting the investment with two football clubs. I think if it was like Leeds with one football club and it got the investment, the club could move forward. But to me, and it's the same with myself, I look for United losing first before I look for the Wednesday result. And I think that's the same across the city. The other side looks for Wednesday losing before they look at their own result. And it's like we drag each other down. It's two like lobsters in a pot. And being a Sheffielder, I'd much rather see one Sheffield's club being really successful, because I worked at HSBC for 15 years and it was no terrible. We had Man United, Liverpool supporters there, crowing about their football club all the time. And Wednesday, or Sheffield as a football city, was an embarrassment. We started the game of football in Sheffield. Sheffield rules. Sheffield Football Club and Hallam, oldest derby in the world. And we're a bit of a joke in football. Wednesday haven't won the First Division, Premier Division since 28 and 29, won it twice. And United, I think, it goes back to when I think Jack the Ripper was on the loose, or very close to when Jack the Ripper was on the loose when they last won the First Division. Wednesday won the FA Cup in 35 against West Brom. I think that was 4-2. And then that's been it. The Rumbelows Cup came runners-up in the First Division in 1960-61 under Harry Catterick. Then they let Harry Catterick go to Everton. And he had a lot of success at Everton after that. So I always dream about a Sheffield club being really successful. And I would like to share it with the other side of Sheffield, because I'm a Sheffielder above being a Wednesday supporter. But I'm sure I'll get some down arrows from Wednesday supporters on that, but tough. So we're walking back down now onto Penistone Road. The players come out of that main stand. You find the restaurants in it, and at one bit there used to be a really famous nightclub, Christie's nightclub. In the stand, you could go into that nightclub before the match and have a drink, and I've been in there a few times. I suppose they don't want the riff-raff in the football club anymore, but I've actually had the treatment. I've been to Old Trafford, I've had the stretch limo treatment, had my meal before the football match and sat in the directors. I've seen the other side, the prawn sandwich brigade. And when I went to Old Trafford that time, I said, if this is the future of football, I don't want to know. I may have worked in a bank for 15 years, being a manager there, put a suit and tie on, but I like my football working class. I don't like the prawn sandwich brigade. Don't like the all-seater stadiums, like the choice of sitting and standing. So we're back on Penistone Road, and I'm just going to show you where my great-grandma lived. More for my parents' benefit than anybody else's, but there was a row of terraces here that started to fall into the River Don. The yard started to crack because we used to go across to the toilets there. It was a 3-tier terrace block. And that was about the 1980s when my great-grandma moved out, or probably just a bit before the 1970s it was. I just wish she'd still lived there, because it would have been fantastic for going to the football matches. The house was always full when there was a match on. And when Wednesday scored, when I was a young kid, you used to hear the house shaking. So this is the car lot where the house was. And there's a picture of my great-grandparents holding me as a baby by the wall, where the sign is for Winster Road, their house was. And there used to be a bit of trouble at semi-finals. The actual supporters club merchandise shop was just there as well. I think it's where the missing terrace is. Shows you how much the merchandising has grown. But when I was a young kid walking to Hillsborough, it seemed to seem miles from the house, just there, down the side of the stand and into the west stand at the other end, Leppings Lane stand in the seater part. Quickly moved into the standing part, and if I could stand on the Leppings Lane now, I would stand on the Leppings Lane without fencing. I have no issue with standing at all. So we're just walking back over the River Don. see the back of the cot. I can see the South Stanley main stand. We're going to come up to the main gates here. And you just see, you walk actually under the stand now, it's that big, it comes. So I'm having to narrate this video after the event. My external microphone